Test.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are. Now I feel like Roger Daltrey, but I'm not going to sing. But as I said, the bad news is that Anya Parampil can't be here today. Unfortunately, we had a natural phenomenon called a hurricane, and she and her outstanding husband, Max Blumenthal, were supposed to be here to participate, and weather got in the way. It might be bad news or good news, but I'm pinch hitting for Anya on the Middle East and Gaza. So if you're expecting somebody a little bit better looking, a little bit smarter, and a little bit articulate, forgive me. But here I am. I start off with humor, not because I find the situation in the Middle East humorous. I start off with humor because if I were to address the situation in the Middle East with the sincerity that it deserved, I couldn't speak to you because I'd be crying. The horror of war has never been so manifest as it is today in the Middle East. The crimes that mankind is able to perpetuate against mankind are on display, full display. It's not theoretical acts of genocide that are taking place. It's actual acts of genocide that are taking place today, with the Israelis inflicting genocidal murder on the Palestinian civilians of Gaza. And now we have Israel turning its guns on the people of Beirut. Now there is a struggle there, a struggle between Israel and Hamas, a struggle between Israel and Hezbollah. And unfortunately, because a long time ago, mankind forgot about the art of diplomacy, especially the Israelis, and they have chosen the sword, to live by the sword, but you shall die by the sword. They seem to have forgotten that second part. But we are in a war, a horrible conflict. And as is always the case in war, it's the innocents who pay the heaviest price. And that's what we see unfolding in Gaza, depending on who's counting. And this is where it gets really perverse, because somehow the bigger the number I put out there, the more you're supposed to feel horror. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one name I have to put out there for you to have horror in your hearts. And that's Hind Rajab, a 6-year-old girl who was in the car with her relatives. The machine gun bullets ripped through the car, fired by the Israelis, killing her family, leaving her and her 15-year-old relative cousin alive but wounded. They picked up the phone and they called for help. Within minutes, the machine guns opened up again and killed her 15-year-old cousin, leaving a 6-year-old girl alone with dead relatives on the phone, begging for help, pleading for help, crying for help. They tried to send help. They sent 2 paramedics, very brave men, who went out there from the Red Crescent Society. They cleared the path. They got approval from the Israelis to go there and rescue this 6-year-old girl. They got within sight, 50 meters away. They said, "We see her. We see the car." They got out of the ambulance, and they were immediately gunned down by the Israelis, murdered. Their crime, trying to rescue a 6-year-old girl. She's on the phone begging for help. "Please help me. Please come to me." A 6-year-old girl pleading for help. And what did the Israelis do? "The tanks are coming closer," she said. "I'm afraid. The tanks are coming closer." The lady on the other end had her pray, had her recite verses from the Quran. And then the machine guns opened up for a last time. And they murdered Hind Rajab. All you need is one name. And yet I can give you 40,000 to 190,000 names of Palestinian civilians who have been murdered in Gaza by the Israelis. Their crime, wanting to have a homeland, wanting the same thing we want, a place we can call our own, a place we say, "This is my home. This is where I will raise my family. This is where future generations will learn to live in peace with their neighbors." But no, the Israelis don't want to live in peace. The Israelis dream of something, and when I say Israelis, I'm speaking of Zionists, people. I'm not speaking of Jews. I'm speaking of Zionists. The Jewish faith is a faith of God. We are not here to speak ill of the Jewish faith. We're not here to speak ill of any religion. We're here to speak ill of the murder in the hearts of those who will steal the land of others so that they can prosper while suppressing the ambitions, the desires, the hopes, and dreams of millions of people who are innocent. They're only guilty of one thing: being born in a concentration camp, an open-air concentration camp. That's it. That's all they're guilty of. And now what have the Israelis done? Because there was a conflict started on October 7th, I'm not going to go into big information about this. It's controversial. But if you think the Arab-Israeli conflict, the Palestinian-Israeli issue, began on October 7th, 2023, you know nothing about the history of the Middle East. Go back to the Nakba, 1948, 750,000 Palestinians forcibly evicted from their homes, tens of thousands murdered by Israelis who had no intention of allowing the Palestinians to have a homeland. And now you understand why October 7th happened. I'm not here to justify violence. This is a peace rally. We're not here to justify violence. We're here to condemn violence in all of its forms, especially when they turn the guns and instruments of war on innocent civilians. Hind Rajab shall not be forgotten, and no Palestinian who has died in Gaza can be forgotten. And it is our duty and responsibilities as fellow human beings on this planet we call Earth to ensure that her sacrifice shall not be in vain, that one day the Palestinian people will have a homeland of their own, a land called Palestine, and Jerusalem will be their capital. Now, this is an anti-war rally. When we speak of the Middle East, we speak of it being the homeland, basically the birthplace of three of the world's major religions: Christianity, Judaism, the Islamic faith. And you turn to the books of these faiths and you hear words. For instance, Christianity, Matthew 24:26, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The Romans come in, Peter pulls out his sword, Jesus says, "Sheath your sword, because he who lives by the sword shall perish by the sword." And we need to remember that. We have the Jewish faith, Isaiah, where they say that we shall turn swords into plowshares. We shall turn spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not go to war with nations, and we shall learn war no more. There couldn't be a better verse for people. We shall learn war no more. The Islamic faith speaks of people who walk in the eyes of their Creator. They walk with humility. And if others choose to treat them poorly, they respond with peace. Respond with peace. Now, normally I'd like to leave it here, except that I'm going to say that I've lost faith in organized religion, because in the name of organized religion, so many millions of people have lost their lives. I'm going to turn instead to the history of my country, the country I love more than life itself, the United States of America. I'm going to turn to the words of a great president, John F. Kennedy, who in April of 1963, at a commencement address before American University, gave a speech about peace. And the phrase I want you to take away with you, because it's very easy today to read the headlines and to say, "I hate Benjamin Netanyahu." Or if you're on the other side, to say, "I hate Hassan Nasrallah so much I want him dead. I hate Sinwar so much I want him dead." To will death on people, the heads of governments, the heads of entities. But John F. Kennedy said, there is no government or entity so evil that it requires us to lose touch with the fact that the people are innocent. It's about we, the people. We're the ones that matter. It's we the people who are going to make peace. It's not the governments that make peace. We the people make peace. So what I'd like to do right now is a little exercise. I want to take John F. Kennedy's words and bring it into life. What I need you to do now is please stand up, turn to the person to your left and right, and introduce yourself. Tell them who you are, your name. Say hi to people. Bring peace to people. Bring love to people. Thank you very much.